All right, we're gonna go ahead and,
They're all scanned in.
Does it even go back as far?
hey, thanks for coming, everybody. We'll start the meeting with the pledge.
More than last meeting.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll go ahead and start with the approval of the agenda. Dan, do you have anything?
I do not.
Paul, anything to change?
Nope.
Ryan, nope. Okay, we do have, is it
G2?
G2, the county detachment, and
That's
that's
right.
in the packet?
Yeah, and you find that in Dropbox, so if you have a chance, you can take a look at it. And it was emailed out to everyone as well.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Tim?
No,
Yes, okay, all right. With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Make the motion.
Thanks, Ryan. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Mel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. On to the consent agenda. Questions, comments? Okay, entertain a motion to approve.
Make that motion.
Thanks, Dan. A second?
Second.
Thanks, Ryan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Visitor council, mayor's report, public report, I don't have any cards. Josh, did you have any public comment you want to make?
Thank you.
Committee report, motion to change the adult softball fees, park board minutes.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess I can speak to this. This is related to a change the park board discussed at their last meeting. Basically, there were some fees that were being paid, and portion of that money was going towards the festival in the park. And so the park board discussed if they wanted to continue that, and there were some complaints from some of the softball teams that they didn't see the point of that. I guess previously there had been some arrangement for a tournament at the festival in the park, and so those that wasn't being done anymore, and so that's why there's a request from the board for this review. And like I said, Ryan, you can go ahead and talk to it if you want to.
And the suggestion was made and to use those additional funds instead of going to Festival in the Park to go towards the handicap accessible swings that we're hoping to eventually purchase for some of our local parks. Veterans Park, Lions Park, and then we're working with the school district as well through the joint ventures that got brought up last meeting, just as a starting point as well.
Okay. Yeah, and just a little history on that. What happened was years ago, there used to be a softball association, and the softball association would put up the banners at the fields. So Ronnie split the fee to where the association got part of that, and the rest went to wherever the fees were. The association disbanded and didn't want to do it, so they asked Festival. So the festival did all the labor, volunteers did all the labor to put those banners up, and that's what they got that fee for. So I know I had some questions from some of the festival committee about what was going on there, and that's fine. If they want to take care of their own banners, do that, that's no skin up our nose.
Yeah.
So
And
that's what it was
the number
for.
of teams has gone down considerably
But
too over
it's
time, and
down, yeah.
it's not a big a chunk of money as it used to be going towards it.
No, and the
They wanted-
banners too, not a lot of people want to do the banners anymore either, because there's not that many teams, so.
They were more than willing to pay it if it went to something that they thought was really supported the parks. They still wanted to support, but they just wanted to see it go to a different opportunity, and that was the same day that Sarah Bailey presented on the handicap accessible swings, and
Yep.
So, what is the change to the fees? Are they just going away, or are they just going somewhere else?
Yeah, there's a reduction, I think it was.
there was a reduction because they're not,
See that amount.
they're not paying for umpires. They switched the level of the league, so it went down in price for the teams, so the fees have gone down, so they're taking that chunk that doesn't go towards the fees for mowing, for bases. They don't pay for balls anymore, but the other fee that would have went to festival is now going towards the swing. But the fees have gone down this year with them not having, it's not association, but it's I don't want to say accredited, I can't remember the word right now. But Ben didn't apply for them to have the umpires and all the other pieces to go to state and nationals, because they don't want to do that. It's a smaller league.
Okay.
Yep, perfect. Anything else on that? Okay, entertain a motion to approve.
Make the motion.
Thanks, Ryan. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Dan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next one, the change to the Charlotte Woodrum to Assistant Manager of the Park Board.
So this is related to one of the staff people who was going to be assistant manager, who actually got a college internship, so she's going to be doing that instead, which is great for her. So it's just an adjustment to have Charlotte as one of the assistant managers instead of just a regular employee.
Perfect. Any questions on that? Okay, entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Dan. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Mel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Old business wall quote.
So this is something that council's familiar with. They have a project at the WPA wall in the park. Ms. Sinning forwarded this over to me. I bring it to you. They are requesting some additional work be done on the wall. I indicated to her that I thought it was unlikely that we would want to spend any additional funds on that. At the time, I know that the groups that were involved in doing the fundraising had indicated that the contractor they had was the one they wanted. They were very profuse about it. It doesn't sound like maybe they're quite as high on that contractor anymore. Simply because if you do look at the wall, you can see there's the continued deterioration, especially along the sidewalk line. I mean, it's limestone that's deteriorating. I don't know that it was intended to last, forever. And so we might look at mortaring it ourselves, possibly doing a little bit more mortaring along there. But Dan, you had some point.
Well, when we went through this whole deal, didn't they have extra funds available? What did they do with those?
Well, I think that some of that money is going for that plaque. So.
But wouldn't they, if, we went with the recommendation of them on who to fix it. Is there no warranty with this guy? And the other thing is, it hasn't even been a year.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree 100%.
So I don't think that, we want to be spending more money on, this was supposed to be the fix-all for that wall for years to come, according to.
Well, do we know why it's continuing to deteriorate? Because Mr. Dingle, I believe, is who they had come and do it, and he is an expert.
Right.
I mean, this is what the man does.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have that answer. I think he lives overseas a good part of the year, so I haven't spoken to him myself. I don't think that any of our staff, speaking with Ben and Charlie, we anticipated that the limestone itself will continue to degrade. I mean, it's just when it's exposed to weathering in the wintertime, it freezes and thaws and it cracks. So I don't know I think the wall's performing as well as I would have expected. So I'm not sure that there's ever going to be any way to completely, fix it forever and ever.
Sure.
To your point, I think it's a matter of managing and even if you look at the proposal, they're talking about finishing up some tuck pointing, replacing fractured stone at the stone's going to continue to fracture every winter because it's going to get wet, it's going to freeze and thaw. So, I went through and had Ben clean up the rock that was the detritus that was on the sidewalk, and I guess we'll kind of track it this year and see if it's continuing, or if it's just a matter of the winter freeze and thaw, which is what I think a lot of it is.
Could we suggest that they delay the signage and use those funds to finish the project? And then, once that project's done, find the funds to finish the plaque? Because the wall's more important than the plaque.
Yeah, I think my recommendation would be to kick this down to Park and Rec. I know Ms. Sinning is a member of the Park and Rec Board, so maybe the Park and Rec Board can have more discussion about it, and I think that would be a good thing to do. And in the terms of, I guess, my bigger concern is the continuing expense. We're looking at $2,000 here. That is something that, if the council decides to do it, it isn't a financial problem, but I don't want us to get in the habit of doing that every year, because I just don't think that's a good use of funds,
Especially if there was still money left over that they could use to pay for the sign. Because the reason that the water tower has a sign is that the money that the Historic Society was holding in trust, the other member of that water tower committee decided that it should all be spent on that sign.
Sure.
But if there's money left at this point, I agree. I think that it's better held in trust for future repairs of the wall.
And that was, because if I remember right, and I could be wrong, but when we did this, they said they had extra funds and they were going to use them for future repairs and...
Well, I certainly can relay that to Ms. Sinning. And
Get back to her.
would you like to have this go on the park agenda for their next meeting?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep, back down there.
We'll do that as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. G2, the county detachment.
Sure, and I I included that information in your Friday update. So earlier this year, the county board decided they wanted to detach the property. So in your package, you've got two items. You've got a petition for detachment, and then you've also got a map. So you can kind of very clearly see what is included there. It's a parcel that's just north and west, it's kind of behind where the new Quick Trip site is. So, just so you're very, very aware of where that is. And it's going to be part of a county park, so the county board has voted to take it out of the city limits. And what they're asking for is a resolution from the city council affirming that choice that would be sent. At the same time, they sent their petition up to the state of Minnesota. When I read the original statute, I thought that the city could remain neutral, but the county attorney has indicated that he feels that they need an affirmative response from the council, otherwise it would go to a mediation hearing. And spending money at a mediation hearing when we're perhaps neutral on the project doesn't seem like, once again, a use of funds. But I'm certainly open to the council's feedback and whatever which way you'd like us to proceed. But you can see in blue there the outline of the parcel they're looking to detach.
This wouldn't have any impact on a proposed street behind Quick Trip and those homes, would it?
No, that right-of-way has been dedicated, so I think it's .86 acres. So yeah, you can kind of see the blue line kind of
Yeah.
covers it, but it would
Okay.
still be allowed to be. I mean, that does raise a question of how does that cost share go on that road? You know, if we were to build that to the north or have someone build to the north, how would that work? Would the county have a piece of that? But I think that's one of the questions where I'm not entirely in favor of the detachment on a personal level from a staff perspective, but I certainly understand the county board's desire to have full control over their own park.
Would it affect the road going to the west, 16th Street?
No, it shouldn't affect the road going to the west, except, once again, the parcel will be out of city limits, it'll be on the north side of that road.
But, so if that's out of city limits, we could put the parcels to the west and north end of city limits if they're not, right? I mean, it's not gonna,
What's that?
if somebody wanted to add the property to the west of that, into city limits, you could still do that?
I have a feeling, I suspect the county, their waste transfer station will probably always remain county property. So
Sure.
that in of itself, I don't expect to become part of the city.
Okay.
However, to the west of the dump road, which is kind of that west edge, that parcel would be, would line up with what's part of city already, so there shouldn't be any
Okay.
issues with adding that into the city limits at some point in the future.
I don't see a problem with it, I mean, it's just a buffer next to their property, so.
Any other questions, comments? I don't have a problem with it, we've talked about that before. As long as we have access where we need to have access for, we know there's contaminated groundwater there, whatever it is, for the well and all that, as long as all that stuff's addressed,
Sure.
and we aren't on the hook for that, they can build their park, we don't need to build their park.
Okay.
Taxpayers of Casson don't need to pay for that.
So, hearing that, my next step will be to write up this resolution, and then we'll include some of those factors. I know that Mr. Elmquist from the county has already relayed that we'd like to be able to serve that both electrically and for sewer and water purposes. That would be something we'd like to include in that, but we'll include in that resolution for the council at their next meeting on the 14th, I think, of June.
I do have one question about something that they state
Sure.
in Section 6, summarize what efforts were taken prior to filing this petition. And forgive me, because it's paragraph 4, which starts, county staff reviewed the city of Casson's comprehensive land use plan. Towards the bottom third, although land was conveyed from the county to the city for the construction of 16th Street Northwest and the North Service Road, the construction has been delayed indefinitely? What are they talking about?
So, that backage road from 16th Street behind Quick Trip, that's, I think, what they're talking about, because at this time, we don't have a funding mechanism for funding the construction of that street.
Okay. I just thought that was a strange statement, so.
And I did relay that to their staff, is that, we are gonna be building that to the west, out to basically the edge of city limits there before you get back to the county reuse site. But at this time, we don't have the MSA dollars, or we don't necessarily have there isn't a reason to build a backage road at this point, because
Okay.
it's not needed for access anywhere else, so they're aware of that as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Tim. New Business Council, actually, the utility billing memo.
All right, let's see here. So I believe this is related to property here. It's the old Images Building at that corner. Historically, it was a large commercial with demand. The new owner, or one of the new owners, or the leaser, I'm not sure exactly who Mr. Mark Ward is, would like to be a small commercial with, is he here?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. If you'd like to come up, that'd be great. Just explain your request, sir. I wasn't aware if he was coming tonight.
You were
so-
doing fantastic.
Okay.
But no, yes, I would like to downgrade that from the large commercial that it was to a lesser. I did see that there was, I don't know if you have, the record or the,
I don't have a copy of your bill in the packet, no.
Would-
I
would
just have
you
a
like
memo
to?
from our utility billing specialist here.
sure, I can see the time where I, started the air compressor to see if it was, like, usable or junk or whatever, and it did jump up the demand, but, I mean, I, since then, took the air compressor out. I mean, I can see they had tremendous amount of draw. Yeah, I mean, one switch was 600 amps. So, right now, there's SEMCAC in there, and Kratos Strength Training, which he's got free weights in there, exercise bikes, and then our own business, which is in-home cleaning. So, I mean, the usage is significantly less what I could imagine what Images used to be.
Sure. So typically in the past, when a business has come in, that's why this is to the council, because council will make that decision where they would like to try and see it reclassed. And you can see in the memo that Ms. Sullivan wrote up, that's been typically running about 12, and that typically we look at businesses that are running at 25 or higher over a 3-month average, consider them large. So, seeing that, I think what we could do is we could move them down to a small commercial, and then, as she notes here, we would monitor the demand. And if it was held at that same level, we would leave it in small. If it were to jump back up again, then we would reconsider.
Makes sense to me.
So, I mean, that's what I guess we were looking for a motion to move forward with reclassing this property, 105 Manorville, from large commercial to small commercial without demand.
So my only concern is if it has got the capability in there right now, how often are we gonna be watching it? I mean, could you switch it?
Every month on the utility bill.
Okay.
We'll see
Yeah, I
it.
mean, Cassie does, and I mean, I get a chance to take a look at those usually when she processes the bills. We'll keep an eye on it every month and make sure that it's staying below that level. If it were to spike, then we would bring that back up.
Okay.
First with the business owner and then with council if we chose to see it.
You know, and I totally believe people are gonna do it, but I just, what ifs is always out there, that's why I asked.
I also, if it does spike in the next couple months here, with the air conditioning starting and whatnot, I'd like to get a electrician in to see if the air conditioners are parallel and not stacked on one leg, to make it more efficient as well. Because like you say, if I don't have to pay the extra demand charge, why do it?
Yeah, I get it, I totally get it. I'm just asking any little questions just in case.
No, I mean, we're coming into the summer season, so we'll monitor this and report back if there's any additional changes we feel are necessary. So like I said, I'd be looking for some action from council on that if possible.
I would make the motion to change from the large size to, is it, what's the, small size demand.
Okay, we have a motion, do I have a second? Thanks, Mel. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
And thank you for coming. I'll get with Cassie and we'll take a look at that utility billing and get it adjusted, okay? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's see, H2, cannabis ordinance.
All right, so many of you will be aware that the state of Minnesota has passed a lot of legislation in the last week, filing out a lot of things. One of those items is the cannabis legalization for recreational use, which is it's a big change for the state of Minnesota. And I know Josh has been watching this too, and he's brought to my attention a few things like having to figure out what we're going to do with the dog that's trained to find cannabis, and now won't be having to worry about it as much. So definitely something we're keeping an eye on. And I did see there was one change in the county there, because this is something a lot of cities are looking at, is they're looking at doing a one-year moratorium, basically to just make sure that we have zoning and stuff like that right. And
I know when we did this, we looked at CBD, the council chose not to take action, which it wasn't as interruptive. You know, I think that marijuana may be a little bit more interruptive in terms of wanting to make sure that we have it. This isn't to stop sales completely because state law allows it, but it would allow us to study, you know, how many locations we feel are appropriate and where they should be zoned, and distances from schools and things like that, if we want that to be a factor. So, and obviously, we're not taking any action tonight, but I wanted to get this draft in front of you so you can take a look and see if you have any questions. I did base it off of City of Mankato, which just passed it earlier this week. They passed a moratorium on sales so they could study the zoning and making sure that the things are done properly there. So I think it might be an important thing to make sure that we're really sure where we want it to go and that sort of thing. But I don't know, Josh, if you've got anything else you want to add to that? Okay. Or if there's any questions from council, I'd be glad to take those now.
I mean, I would say, rather than spending time working out this moratorium draft, let's just do the work and set the zoning and get it done.
I'm not sure that we have enough time to necessarily do a thorough job of that in the next, because it will take effect in about a month.
Okay, so we're Wild West for a few weeks before we can get something in place? That doesn't seem unreasonable.
If you would allow a business to start, they would have an interest in it. So if there was an application that came through, and they were approved, you wouldn't be able to change it going backwards. They would be essentially grandfathered in.
So, anybody who wants to do these sales would have to come through the city to apply for it first, right?
No, there's no permit at this point.
So right now, it's only through the state, so, for example, an existing business in town wants to start doing it, the city would just not know about it at this point, is what you're saying?
Yes, at this point, that's correct.
Okay.
Right now, we
Well,
don't actually
as of-
license the smoke shops either, so.
As of July 1st is when the,
Yeah, I think that's when the new fiscal year and the new legislative year starts for the state of Minnesota, so yeah, it would be when it would apply. I mean, part of it is we kind of fall in this weird window where right now the county's regulating the smoke shops, you know, anyone where they're selling, so we really haven't taken, I mean, we don't know a lot of the information about those even. So whether they're selling THC products or not, I mean, I don't know, and I haven't gone there myself. But, so yeah, I mean, that would be accurate to say we don't really know at this point, because we haven't licensed anything up to this date, and because the legislation is so new, I don't even know all the nuances yet in terms of how the licensing will even go. You know, I know that the state of Minnesota is creating a new department, and I think it sounds like they're gonna be staffing up to, you know, 300 or 400 people, the new Department of, I don't know, cannabis regulations. So I'm sure that'll be interesting to see how they go, and they'll be handling, I would imagine, the direct licensing for folks that want to open dispensaries. And my only familiarity really with it is from when I lived in California, when I was in the Navy, and, you know, they had dispensaries there already, and those were mostly for medical at the time. I'm sure they're recreational now. I don't know what the laws are in California, but, and the state there was the one that, however, like City of San Diego did restrict, like, the zoning and things like that, so.
I mean, this to me seems like it's gonna be a good opportunity for us to work through this as quickly as possible, because everybody else is gonna be sitting around twiddling their thumbs, you know, reading stuff for a while with their moratoriums. I'd like to see us turn around something real quick that's restrictive enough that makes sense. Like right now, we got stuff for tobacco, right? Would it make sense to just kind of copy that for the time being, and we can amend it as we need, so that we're not necessarily cutting out businesses that might want to be taking advantage of this immediately, if that makes sense.
It does, but my concerns would be, like in Tim's report, he talks about how the new law takes effect July 1st, but the elimination of criminal penalties doesn't start until August 1st.
Well, that's
So-
Josh's problem, isn't it?
Kind of as a government official, it's all of our fault, it's all of our
Thanks for that,
problems.
Josh, yeah. That would also.
But just with all of the state not quite knowing what the state is doing,
Yeah.
that can put us in a little bit, and
Well, I don't think it'd be unreasonable if we wanted a moratorium until August 1st then, if that would alleviate some of your concerns with that.
it's not the extent of my concern. I would need to see, because the stuff that Tim is talking about in this report is also mirrored to an extent in that ordinance that is in there tonight for the moratorium. There's just a lot of internal inconsistencies at the state level with the law. And if we step in it, that kind of opens us up to a little bit of legal liability potentially as well, like you say, with, you know, creating an interest in establishing your business and having businesses that are grandfathered in that may not be in compliance with where we wish to go. So it's sort of a little bit of the whole planning and zoning issue of making sure that we've got the zoning established before we start allowing the businesses to crop up.
I mean, I think, to your point, I guess a lot of it is the known unknowns. Like, I don't know how this is gonna work in Minnesota, and I don't necessarily wanna be the test case for cities. I think if you look at Section 6 under term, if we put this in effect and we see that, the state's getting their act together and they're providing good guidance on it, I haven't even seen the legislative update yet, really, on how this is gonna be implemented. I don't know that. And I don't know, Josh, if you've seen a lot on it either. The state doesn't really know until they get this Office of Marijuana Regulations up, how they're gonna regulate it. So I think if ideally, they come up and they say, here's how you do it, and here's how many locations you can have, or something along those lines. And at that point, if the council's comfortable, we can rescind it early.
Right.
I mean, I have no problem with it. I mean, we ended up doing that with the THC. I mean, it ended up, I don't know that we've seen a big issue because of that. I don't think we have, really. This seems like it's gonna be a little bit larger step, and the state doesn't really know how is the taxes gonna work on it. I mean, I don't know how that's gonna work, tax collection, the distribution networks,
Licensing for the retailers.
So, I certainly understand what your point is.
Yeah,
I think as soon as we would have something that we feel is workable, I would have no problem with rescinding a moratorium on the buildings being, offered, because I hear your point on wanting business here, and it was the same argument we had with allowing well, that's why we took over the smoking ordinance, because we wanted to have a little more flexibility for the businesses than the county wanted to have. So I certainly understand where you're coming from. I have really no idea, and so my guidance to council, my recommendation is until we know what's going on, to not allow the businesses to open. But, council can do whatever they want to do.
I can get on board with a moratorium for up to a year,
Sure.
but I think it should be as soon as possible.
Yeah.
We've been working for 7 years now, as long as I've been involved, about trying to get business in town and being business friendly. I mean, yeah, we gotta dot our i's, cross our t's, we don't wanna be the test case and waste a lot of money down and open up doors that we don't wanna go through, but I think we should get on it as soon as we can get the information to do it.
Yeah.
Because whether somebody buys it in Casson or Byron or wherever, they're gonna buy it. I mean, we may as well make it available here. So.
No, as I said, I mean, if it's legal, whether I agree with using it or not, that is beside the point. It's the same thing with smoking. I don't necessarily smoke. It's legal. It's able to be purchased. I just want to make sure that the city does it in a proper and orderly fashion. And if it ended up, we have to figure out, like, how many are we interested in allowing? Are we allowing an interest in how many, what's the number? And part of it's going to be, I'm going to have to be guided by, the police department and the police chief, and what kind of guidance he gets from the state, because if there's an infraction, he's going to be enforcing that, and it's not going to necessarily come to me. So anyways, it's in your hands. Absolutely, I agree. As the guidance comes out, I'm going to share it with you, as I try to do with everything. If the state says, here's how it's supposed to work, that's something that we'll definitely take into account. And, this isn't even on the agenda tonight. I mean, in terms of it's informational tonight, we're not voting on it or anything like that. So if by the next meeting I have better guidance for you, I'll be glad to share that with council as well.
Do you know if Rochester has done a moratorium or is in the works?
They haven't approved one. They are discussing it right now, kind of the same spot we are,
That'd be
because
really
it's just been approved.
I think it'd be really good if we were able to beat them to the punch by a significant amount of time.
You also have to have a business that wants to come sell it too.
We have a lot.
Yeah, so I guess my second thing is, this is a little bit more different idea, but can we do a moratorium with an exception for places that already hold a tobacco license?
Well, I mean, I think that's a possibility.
Because we already know that the places with tobacco license, I assume, are in areas where we would consider it acceptable.
Yeah, I mean,
and they're gonna be interested.
Yeah, the more I thought about it, I mean, it raises a lot of questions, like, I don't live, we haven't lived in a state where it's legal before, or at least I haven't, aside from California. And, for example, does Quick Trip decide that they wanna sell marijuana? I don't know. Does it fit their business model? I mean, it's kind of a family-friendly, maybe they do, once it's legalized. If it was legal in the whole country, I'm sure they would. And same thing with Casey's or any of the gas stations. Like, that's gonna be kind of an interesting way. How does that work? Like, if it was a smoke shop, you'd expect that. You'd say, okay, yep, smoke shop, they're gonna have whatever, they're gonna have the vapes and things like that. But in most states, like I said, California, there's a dispensary that's a separate business than a smoke shop, because they don't necessarily, and I know the state of Minnesota is restricting very heavily who gets these permits. They've made it very clear that they anticipate that it's gonna be people who've been affected by marijuana, issues in the past. So if you've been jailed because of it, or if you're part of a, kind of the diverse community, that's who they anticipate these licenses going to. So it's not gonna be that everybody that says they wanna do it is gonna get one. There's gonna be a finite number. Like I said, I don't know how that's gonna work for casting yet, because we don't really have a, idea of that yet. So yeah, absolutely, I think some things are relatively easy for us to understand, like zoning wise, like where are we gonna allow these? We're not gonna allow them, in my opinion, in residential areas. That seems like, and I don't want someone, in the garage, it's a little different from getting a conditional use permit, even for like Chaotic Good Brewing.
Cottage license.
We allowed that, we did, but it's a question though, because you could say, hey, this is my cottage industry, and then, Linda's seen it before where we have some very diverse businesses, gunsmithing and black, horseshoeing, we've allowed that. Like, would we allow it out of someone's garage? I would lean towards no. I think that you create traffic problems, residential areas, I just foresee things, but.
Well, you can, with the law too, you're able to grow to your own plants.
Yeah, I was just gonna,
We could do like
I
a
was just gonna
boulevard
say-
tree planting program and give everybody 2 plants a year, and we wouldn't allow it being sold in town.
Section 3A says, the moratorium would apply to individuals growing, cultivating cannabis products, but
say that.
the law specifically allows individuals for non-sale to grow, so would this not actually apply, or would we be trying
PA is
to?
talking about engaging in retail sales, wholesale growing, testing, growing, cultivating.
So-
it's a for sale
So
product.
the growing and cultivating is related to the selling part in
Yeah,
that
it's not,
statement.
this would apply to retail businesses. This isn't intended to be,
Right, 'cause
individuals.
we won't have any control over whether,
I won't know if somebody's doing it in their home, just like I don't know now, so.
you'll probably see the plants, they get like 6 foot tall, don't they?
Maybe, I don't know.
Depends on which variety.
Maybe we'll see an energy spike, we'll have some houses that go on demand for electricity, I don't know.
You're gonna send out a code enforcement letter and be like, no, that's...
Commercial, the large commercial, hey.
We have the best boulevard tree planting program in the state. It'll be beautiful.
Everyone will think it's good, I don't know.
Smell.
So anyways, like I said, it's kind of on the edge, it's just legislation I don't even know if the governor's actually signed it. I don't think he has signed the marijuana legislation yet. But, so I just wanna get in front of it and let you know, this is what I'm looking at, this is what other communities are looking at, and I certainly think that, there's definitely gonna be some things that we wanna figure out. And some of those, like I said, are gonna be relatively straightforward. If we say, hey, it's allowed in, commercial and, industrial, that's zoning. That's one check mark. And then how many are we gonna have? Are we gonna allow 5? Currently we have 5 cigarette sale, we have Quick Trip, potential for new Quick Trip, Casey's, you've got Smoke Shop, you've got, I think Hy-Vee sells. So, those are all things, and I don't know if Quick Trip will sell it, or if Hy-Vee will sell it, because then that eliminates, if they say, no, we're not gonna do it, then that's fine, because we don't have to worry about them. But, so, to me, like, those are the things that we can work through those, and I think we should as quickly as is realistic. But, right now, my recommendation would, to give us some time before we start having kind of, somebody said the Wild West. I don't think we'll get the Wild West. I think we'll have a lot of responsible people.
The state is gonna come up with some rules between now and...
Yeah, exactly. Well, they're
limit
gonna be
us to-
having to hire 400 people to regulate this. How long is that gonna take?
I think it's gonna take them a while to set rules, and
Right.
it's not gonna happen overnight.
Depends on how familiar they are with the product.
But it's also not completely personalized to tobacco sales, because this is more in line with liquor sales, and that would be kind of the thing.
And that's a good point. It is a more
An
controlled
intoxicant,
substance,
yeah.
so it is a little bit more in line with liquor. I know that, our liquor store manager, their liquor store association is following this very closely, because a number of the liquor stores in the metro that are city-owned are looking at potentially becoming dispensaries too. And I don't know if Kathy will be interested in that or not, but that's a possibility as well. So it'll be interesting to see how it turns out, so.
Okay. All right, so everybody take a look. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, can you keep us updated on the surrounding areas and whether they put moratoriums there or
Whatever
not?
information I hear, I will definitely be sharing.
I'd be curious to know if like Dodge Center or something decides to just not do anything,
Yeah.
They're already
or
doing it.
Byron.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Appreciate it. Yep, thanks, everybody. Let's see here, administrator's report.
Okay, and I think we already talked about a couple of these items, but I'll run through some stuff anyways here. Omnibus bill for housing, I noted in there, we will be applying for funds to complete the second phase of Vail. I know that Brandon's got some information, he actually got an update this afternoon from the sand company, so they have their project, sounds like they're moving forward. I know we had some good discussions with Hamilton, about a second phase for them as well. They had, last week when we talked to them, I think they had 40 or 41 of the units, of the 52 units were already sublet or leased, so pretty good, already at 80% of their leasing. They have people scheduled to move in, starting on the 1st of June. Like I said, last night, they did pave the first layer, the bottom layer of that road, and it sounds like they're gonna be paving the parking lot, probably this week still, so that's exciting to see that move forward, and hopefully if we can apply for some of that funding for that second phase, we'll kind of, not have to spend as much of our own. I've got some park and rec updates here as well. If you've been past the tennis courts, you've seen they did the base work, last week. They finished that. They're expecting to have the surface put on, the tile surface put on next week. So that's exciting for me. The electric department was out and they adjusted the lighting for the tennis court. So we're gonna see how those lights that are out there look and work currently. I do think we'll probably end up having to put some new ones in, but we wanna see how that actually looks at night. So, one of these nights I'm gonna go over there and flip them on and we'll take a look and see how it looks. So that's exciting. The training was held for the staff at the aquatic center and it sounded like it went very well. We did wanna note there is one tweak to the ticketing process. So the folks who pay the daily fee will be able to get a stamp to re-enter the aquatic center, for the evening session. So hopefully if, folks are interested in coming back, we're gonna allow them to do that. In the past, they've done different things. That's the policy for this year. So if anybody asks you, that's they'll get a stamp on their hand, they can come back in for free. I talked about the marijuana recreation and some of the things that the state is talking about. So kind of gonna be very interesting to see, but I know in there we can control the location of retailers. We can pull businesses' licenses. It'll be subject to that state office's review, and we can also restrict them through zoning. So I think that those are some of the things that we'll definitely try and get answers to. Included in your packet are some, and I like to try and keep you updated on what's going on. So some of the base work for the fire hall is coming. So you can see that, we approved the testing, and Chosen Valley was for that. Storm shelter, Chosen Valley's gonna be doing that as well. WHCAS will be doing that construction staking, and then the last of the asbestos removal will be done as well. So they're currently on track for groundbreaking the first week of August. We've got a meeting with the staff from ICS to talk about exactly how that will go. We'll have some, they'll have, kind of a nice groundbreaking with hard hats and golden shovels and everything. So hopefully that 57 project gets done on time, so we can get into the site and everything. And then I've got some information on that, done work from home policy too. A couple other things just wanted to update you on. We've got an event permit for a road closure for that. So, they're looking at doing a road closure, and I think they lay out there, pretty much what they're asking for the project. And it shouldn't affect, largely shouldn't affect traffic flow, because they're looking at blocking off that street kind of, I believe that's East Main Street, that section basically in front of the fire hall and just up to the edge of the parking lot for Sunwood Manor. So the folks from Sunwood will still be able to get out and they'll be able to go up to First Street to access the town, and then people will still be able to come down First Avenue Northeast to get out. So they're looking at that just for additional staging space, and also the fact that, especially during demo and things like that, they're not going to want to have people driving that close to the fire hall. So they're asking for permission for that to be approved by council tonight. And a new program we've started is an employee spotlight program. Jessica Gunnarsson, I want to give her some credit. I did her probationary review, and something she brought up she thought would be a nice add to our monthly newsletter. And so, of course, I said it was a great idea, and then she decided that I would be the first one to go. So that was something interesting. But so each month now we're going to be doing a spotlight with a different employee from the city, kind of talking about what they do and trying to interest especially kids in the field of working for the city and working for municipal governments, because obviously we're seeing kind of a dearth of employees. So that's kind of what's included in their packet there. Otherwise, just wanted to highlight, I will be out of the office next week on vacation, so just so you know. Any questions anybody has?
Once the groundbreaking happens, will that have any impact on their fire hall dance 2 weeks later?
It's a good question, and I don't know the answer to that, but I can talk to Joe. I don't think it probably will, but that's something we definitely do need to figure out. I don't know what his plan is, because I imagine Joe has probably have talked about. So I'm not sure how fast, the groundbreaking itself won't have any impact, because, we'll go out there with shovels and go, yay. Whether the demo is actually gonna start right on the 5th or the 7th, or they say, hey, why don't we wait so we can still use the bathrooms and stuff like that for a week, that might be a better idea, honestly. So I'll check with Joe.
They're already
'cause
selling
I don't
raffle
know the answer.
tickets.
The last Relief Association meeting, they have a contingent for either way, is what they were saying. I don't know what it is, but they were talking about that what if, and
I mean, part of the issue is that, right now, the folks who are doing 57 and MinDOT have got a lot of stuff stored on the fire station site. They've got a couple of different, I don't know what you call them. Yeah, temp trailers, and they've got a lot of material, so I would think before we really start digging and hammering, we need to get that cleaned up too, because we're gonna have to store stuff there, and there's gonna be a lot of things moving, a lot of moving pieces with the electrical lines that are gonna have to get moved too, so I would guess that maybe it'll slide. And I mean, I've told ICS, like, we wanna get started, but at the same time, we need to be done with the road, because obviously that's hugely impactful, so.
I think their contingent site is Public Works.
Which is where all the fire trucks will end up being anyways, so maybe. Any other questions?
Thanks, Tim.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I'll look for a motion to approve the event permit, for the fire hall construction road closure.
One thing on that then, would you want to put contingent on the fire dance there? Because it says August 1st here. Would you want, or wouldn't it
Yeah,
matter?
I don't think that would be a,
It doesn't matter,
well, so the event permit isn't for the dance.
No, but I meant it would be blocking that road off.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll just work with Joe and them to make sure that
Okay.
it works out, and I would say the permit would be contingent on the start of the demo, or the start of the project, and I think that's perfectly fine.
As early as August 1st, but
Yeah, as early as
Could be
August
the
1st, but
10th.
more likely than not, it's at least gonna be that second week of the
Yep.
month.
I'll make the motion.
thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Mel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Engineers report.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. Two items tonight. The first one is project update, maybe the biggest update. I can't believe Tim didn't mention it. We did get past the bonding
I'll
bill.
let you have all the glory.
Well, thank
Come on
you.
now.
Thank you. Yes, we did get $5 million from the bonding bill, so thank you, Senator Nelson and Representative Kwan for pushing that through. So that is for our Southwest Flood Control Project, so that is ultimately a $10 million project. We had a 50-50 match, included the flood control project, but also a reconstruction of Southwest Casson, generally south of Maston Creek, west of 57. It's like kind of an older area in town that is on Public Works kind of next phase of project. So, yeah, it's moving forward. We got a lot of work to do. We're still some years out by the time we get things permitted. We got some land easement discussions we got to have. Permitting is going to be interesting to say the least on getting things permitted with the Army Corps and whatnot, but all things we can do.
No,
So
I
we're
mean, that
still-
is a really good point. I mean, I guess I forgot about it. I shouldn't have, but that's a huge win. I mean,
Absolutely.
I know staff has been pushing for this. Council, you've been pushing it for the last 4 years for a more permanent fix. So for the residents in town, I mean, this is huge. And, yeah, we got to figure out how to pay for everything and make sure it gets permitted and engineered right and everything. But, what a cool thing to say, hey, maybe we actually could do a permanent fix to this project and fix things for people along the river corridor. So very cool.
So that's moving forward, so more news to come, but great news that we got that covered. And then I think we need to start talking about financing and how things are gonna work and spacing and everything, but all things we'll figure out. If we can get $5 million coming into the city, great. So that's where we're at on the bonding bill. Somewhat related, did just had a big meeting with MinDOT, representing the city as a state aid city, to vote on some stuff, but they also gave us an update. They'd apply a gas tax. Gas tax is gonna go up in the state, and that's gonna be tied to inflation as years go on. And then we also have some funding for some car parts that goes in our municipal state aid. So there'll be more money in that pot of money that we get, about the $300,000 a year. So that's gonna continue to rise. They didn't have any projections yet, because even MinDOT's unwrapping what was improved. So probably more news to that I'll update as we move forward. So, and there's also some more programs from the federal level and the state level that we can apply for. Remember, we got money from Safe Routes to School to do that project. 16th Street going east through LRIP, we got money there. Cooperative agreement for the 16th Street roundabout and 57, so we've dabbled in a lot of those programs, so those are going to continue. So we talked about extension of 16th Street to the west is still a need. We're going to use a lot of our MSAS funds, if not a lot of them, and probably borrow ahead for the roundabout, but there may be some other opportunities that Tim and I will be bringing forward to the council. So just understand that that's going to be more money in those pots that we're going to always be looking in, so be looking for that. Things we are in construction on. 57, we're still digging up some cool stuff, dug up like a wooden vault today, but Ann's from our team's been on that, finding services.
We did mention contaminated materials in the downtown corridor. We just got approved from the Petro Fund, potentially, as that quantity's gone up, we've ultimately got the Petro Fund to agree to cover that, so we're covering our costs there to get reimbursements through the Petro Fund. Roundabout project, that's proceeding along, same sort of stage. We will talk about the access up there, that's access, to the two properties up there. That's gonna be the next agenda item. So we'll talk about that. The towers, you all seen have been painted, so we're gonna start the wiring and controls and get that thing fired up, hopefully by the fair time. And then Vale, Tim had mentioned, so he didn't steal the thunder on that one. So that did get paved for the June 1st opening, so we're gonna continue on that. And we are meeting with Sand and Hamilton to work out the details there. That's about it in construction. So any questions on where we're at or comments, or we can jump to the 18th Street conversation?
They pretty much on schedule for both projects on 57, or
Yeah,
are they a little behind?
I mean, they're still thinking middle of July. We're gonna still see how things go. You know, it was a little bit of a wet spring, but it's been good here the last couple of weeks, so. They were slowed up a little bit on the contaminated side, and I think we got all that straightened out, so I think we're moving in the right direction, so. See how weather goes here moving forward, so. Anything else? All right, in your council packet, also is 18th Street, that is the plat for the area, north and west, of the roundabout. So looking at this, north would be to the right, the school would be to the, south of, that platted area there where all the text is. And Manorville Avenue is Trunk Highway 57, there, that's the road corridor shown there. And those are the lots and some public right-of-way. You can see 16th Street, imagine that's where the roundabout's gonna go on the left-hand side of the paper. We have 18th Street, 20th Street, and 21st Street. And then it's shown between the lots and the right-of-way there's actually, public city right-of-way platted, between kind of those houses, in Manorville Avenue. So it actually kind of worked in our favor when we built the roundabout. And then we do have 18th, 20th, and 21st Street platted, but it's ultimately not built. So the discussion is, and I gave you a lot of information there to just so we can wrap up on what we have going on up there. There was a discussion, ultimately, the Foot, Tune, and Cunningham property, and Cunningham ultimately is going to be the new Quick Trip. Use that frontage road, as there's a couple of access points there, and then all their driveways are kind of served from that frontage road. When we met with the Foots, the Tunes, and ultimately Shooty, who owns the property to the west of this area, talked about the access. What we had proposed was moving that access to ultimately where 18th Street is, and that access would serve the Tune and Foot, the two residential houses there, and then Quick Trip kind of has their own access and whatnot for their project. They requested us to move that not from in front of their houses, but we run it between the houses, down 18th Street to serve Tune on the right, which would be to the north, and Foot's to the left, or to the south, and then continue down 18th Street, about where the text is, into the Shooty property. So in my opinion, we call that a private driveway, albeit in the public right-of-way. So then the Foot and Tunes asked who is going to maintain that and plow it, because it's in a public right-of-way. Our response, based on previous councils and previous council discussion, because we do have some other private driveways, albeit in public right-of-way, Old 14 behind CHS there, that Public Works does not plow those because it's a private driveway. You all in your homes have driveways that are in public right-of-way too, albeit coming out of your houses, you know, your driveway aprons, and they're not plowed by Public Works. So, that's what we told them. They've questioned that because evidently we have been plowing that frontage road in the past. But seeing as we have moved it from a frontage road, in my opinion, kind of down 18th Avenue to more of a driveway situation, that was what Tim and I conveyed to the property owner. So I guess ultimately, what are we here tonight? Reaffirming that that's what we're doing. We're not going to be plowing private driveways as part of the project. So that's kind of what, I guess, updating the council on what we've told the citizens, and unless directed otherwise, that's our message from a Public Works and City Administration Engineering standpoint, so.
Okay, any comments or questions on that? I agree, because if it's a private drive, we can't make an exception, because otherwise all the private drives will have to be plowed.
Yep, and I get that it's not like your house up, you know, that you have a short apron, I get it, and it is in the public right-of-way, but ultimately it's what they wanted as citizens. We worked with them. I think it's gonna be a better driveway for them, because they do have some trucks there. Aesthetically, it's gonna be nicer. We're gonna clean up their front yards, but it's in the public right-of-way, so I don't think it really makes anything different. We'll just treat it as a private driveway, so.
Okay. Any questions, comments from anybody on that? Okay, you don't need any action on that, just to...
We've already
That's
given
what
them the
you-
answer,
okay,
and they may
alright.
be at a future council meeting not agreeing with the council's direction, that's why we wanted to be here to talk to you tonight, so.
Okay, all right. Anything else?
I think that's it. Good news on the bonding bill, so.
Yes, thank you for your work on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Anybody else got anything for Brandon? Okay, all right, thanks, Brandon, appreciate it. Were you gonna do your Tina Turner tribute?
Not
Before, okay, all right.
Maybe later. Need some of the marijuana maybe to get going.
Okay.
Before we start singing.
We're gonna go on to K then, speaking of, personnel, library board recommendation to hire Bethany Anderson as library assistant, grade 3, step 1, $18.30 per hour, effective June 5th. Anything from our library?
No, nothing to add.
Okay, all right. With that, any questions? I entertain a motion to approve. Thanks, Mel, do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Ryan, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Number 2, resignation of Police K-9 Officer Matt Stratman. So we have his letter of resignation. He's gonna be moving on. We wish him the best and thank him for his service. We don't like to see him go, but, he's gotta do what he's gotta do, so. With that, I'll make a motion to accept his resignation with thanks for what he's done for the city of Casson in his years here, so.
I'll second that.
Thanks, Dan. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Extend our thanks to him. Chief.
And I know we are hiring, so currently there are 2 positions, right, Josh? So we do have a Matt's position being hired for, as well as the position that Officer Kuntz was holding earlier this year. So maybe you could just update the council on your timeline there a little bit.
We've received 4 applications so far. 2 of the applicants are not currently licensed. One is going through skills right now, will be done with skills in July, and then take post-test probably August. And the other one just graduated from skills at RCTC, so he probably won't take the post-test until next month or the month after, so.
Okay.
Wait to see if we get any more applications from officers that have jobs. There are a lot of jobs across the state right now, and some larger agencies are throwing money at people to lateral, so we're competing with them.
Okay. All right, thank you, Chief.
So are you working overtime to cover gonna be covering the 2 missing officers?
So we have some overtime, we're putting investigations back on the road. Luckily, it's summer, so we have Officer Kazel from school available to help, so it's gonna be, come September, where we'll be working short.
Okay. Yeah, 'cause I remember us, when we were talking about the budget, we were like, oh, we hired extra police officers, so we don't need the overtime, and now we've lost our extra police officers, it looks like, so we'll be
Right.
dipping into some of the salary, I guess, to go into overtime.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a little bit of a trade-off, hopefully financially, but no, you're absolutely right. We'll see an increase in the overtime line and the decrease. You'll see the decrease particularly in healthcare. That'll be where the cost savings really is, more so than in salary, so.
Should wash itself out.
Okay, thanks, Chief, appreciate it.
Said it should wash itself
Yeah,
out.
hopefully.
Okay, on to number 3, pilot flexible work policy.
All right, at our last meeting, the council had told us that they wanted us to bring some more information to them, so we tried to sort of distill a policy down to just one, and so that's included in your packet there, and I know that the city clerk is gonna talk a little about the survey that was requested as well, so included, maybe Linda, you can talk about that a little bit too.
Yeah, in front of you, we've kind of distilled some of the questions down to just 4 questions. We were gonna give it to department heads tomorrow, and just have them fill it out and get it back, and then see maybe about the city, putting it in City Hall. I don't see that it would work for every department, because of Public Works, it wouldn't work for them. Wouldn't work for the liquor store. So, I mean, the only one really it works for the police department would probably be Josh. So getting the department head's input as to whether it should apply to everyone, or just exempt, or just department heads, or what, I mean,
That's
I think
inherently part of the policy though, right? If it doesn't apply to your job, then you can't. I mean, it's just, if you're doing retail at the liquor store, it's not an option. I mean, it's just that the policy doesn't apply to you, because the policy's gonna have some kind of mechanism there that says, if your job cannot be performed off-site, then you can't. I mean, that's just, for off-site, I look at flexible as it doesn't necessarily have to mean off-site. It can include off-site, that can include flexible scheduling on-site.
Well, and then, too, then you got flexible scheduling. I don't know if Charlie wants his guys to, some are coming in at 7:30 and some are coming in at 7, and one wants to stay till 5, so.
But that's up to the discretion of the department head or the supervisor. So,
It certainly could be, if we're...
yeah, if he wanted to allow that, he could. If the policy is, it's always up to your supervisor what you want to allow in the department. That's got to be broad there, because, no, we're paving tomorrow, everybody needs to be here at 8, you know, or whatever it is, that can't be flexible that day. I mean, you always have to have some mechanism that the ultimate supervisor has the say on it.
So anyways, yeah, I mean, so we've got these questions going out to department heads tomorrow and see what their feedback is. You know, the council requested some survey questions, and in your packet, there were a few more, but some of them, I guess I purposely left a little vague, and after Linda and I talked about it, maybe we want to be a little bit more specific with things. So we'll get some feedback from them, we'll get feedback from City Hall staff as well, and we'll have those comments and that feedback added for the council's next packet. Were there any questions on the policy itself, or any things that anyone had for feedback in terms of the things that are included there? I know that the city attorney had let me know that she did correspond with the league, and maybe you can talk about that a little bit if you want to.
Sure. I think the question that was put to me was how this kind of a policy could affect our workers' compensation rating, really, because that's, you know, affect the premium. I did a little digging and reached out to the league. Their only concern about it was really that if an employee is injured, there's likely not going to be any witnesses to make a determination about whether or not they were performing their job-related duties, or whether they were, you know, petting their dog, and they fell over the dog and broke, you know, their hand.
Or down the stairs.
Because they were on the way to the bathroom and were petting the dog, something like that. So that was their concern, was essentially it's harder to parse out whether or not it's a job-related injury. But they did have a lot of, they shared with me a number of policies, and the one that Tim had put together encompassed almost everything that they had in there. It was really well put together. There were a few things about home safety checklists, maybe, that you could send home for those employees. Things like, you know, keeping loose cords put away, eliminating clutter, overloaded electrical outlets, and poor lighting were some of the things. But other than that, they didn't have any significant concerns, really, other than and there's so many injuries that are not witnessed anyways, so that's already a part of, you know, it doesn't create a problem, it perhaps increases a problem, but not a huge one. They didn't have concerns. And Tim, you had included the ergonomics. That was the other thing is, and the policy, the proposed policy that you'd put together said that the city was going to provide the computer, you know, the hardware, and maybe some information about how they should be setting it up ergonomically at home. Some help with that. There was a
Sure.
nice diagram on one of those. If you don't have, I can send to you.
Sure.
I think that would be good, because that satisfies any training requirement that might exist as far as ergonomics outside of the traditional workplace.
Right.
So.
Thanks, Melanie. Any other questions anybody has? Because this is just still up for discussion, we're not.
Yeah, so I mean, we're gonna get that survey, you know, that information back, and then I'm hopeful that, you know, outside of other comments, and, you know, this is always up for your feedback and amendment, but we'd be looking at, you know, that first meeting in June, hopefully be able to either filing a policy or not filing it, and, you know.
So this is going to the department heads?
Will be distributed to department heads tomorrow during their department head meeting, and then also city hall staff.
Okay. Okay. Alrighty, anything else anybody else has on that? No, not them? All right, we'll look for the information at the next meeting. Anything from the attorney?
No.
Nope, okay. Correspondence, a couple things there. Any questions on correspondence at all? Okay, hearing none. Our next meeting is the second Wednesday in June. And I'll look for a motion for adjournment.
Make the motion.
Thanks, Ryan. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Paul. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, everybody.